All right, well, I suppose we can get started here. So first and foremost, I want to thank you guys for attending today. And I also want to highlight the sponsorships for EDPA California. So for SoCal is Image Options, Muse, the exhibit company, B Matrix, and Classic Exhibits. So thank you guys for sponsoring us. These events are because of you. And today we have Lisa, and she is with Freeman. She has been immersed in our industry for over 3 decades. Her passion and growth in her knowledge, as well as her love for humans, has positioned her today as one of the highest ranking and sought out women in our industry for ideation, leadership, and guidance. So thank you, Lisa, for taking your time today and sharing with us all of your amazing knowledge that we're about to dive into. And I will hand it over to you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. That was really sweet. A lot of people would say I'm a beast, but I do have a soft heart underneath. I think women as leaders, we've got to be a little bulldog sometimes, but I'm here to help you guys. You know, that's really at the end of the day, we're all kind of intertwined and we're family. And so I just thought that what I'd cover today is hybrid, you know, and really kind of understanding the methodology behind it, because I think a lot of us are dealing with like, what's hybrid, what's live, and why are we doing everything that we're doing. And I do want you guys to know that if there's something I don't cover and you need it later, let me know. But I'm going to kind of talk through kind of where we've been and where we're going. And hopefully this, you know, how many of you are doing hybrid? Is this going to be valuable to you guys? I mean, I heard you, Anna, saying you are, but I'm hoping this is the right content for you guys. And if it's not, let me know. And there might be other things I can speak to later. You know, it goes without saying that a lot of the stuff I'm going to share with you today is informed by audits and research that we've been doing at Freeman. So we've been collecting research to the same community, about 250,000 people, since last March. And I think the reason why that's kind of important is because a lot of people are doing like segmented research. So like you'll research one community, you'll get some feedback, and then you research another community. And so it kind of takes the subjectiveness out of it because you're not really being consistent. And so Freeman has been doing research against the same 350,000 people month after month after month. So we can really tell you how this pendulum's shifting. And that community includes exhibitors, attendees, analysts, organizers, corporate. It's a very beautiful and diverse community. So I just want to say, I'm going to share with you some of those stats today, but I don't want you to kind of misquote it or misuse it anywhere else, because if you need some information, come back to me. We all know that it's been one hell of a year. You know, I don't have to keep going on that. But I think all of us are amped up and excited and passionate about basically creating those high impact events, even now post-COVID. But I think in order to do that really well, we need to kind of understand what the research is saying. So I kind of pulled it together into some synthesized data points. Right now, audiences are not having fun with the virtual experiences. Only 26% of those people are saying that it's really hit what they wanted to. And if you're doing anything in EMEA, the numbers actually drop by another 10%. So in the US, we're not doing that great with digital. And when we go to Europe, we're doing even worse because they're a little bit more critical of what we've been doing. And the blame is kind of shared everywhere. So I don't want it to be like, oh, you know, this one thing is changing or this and that. But the community on digital, and even now for hybrid, we need to think about what worked 18 months ago. And now that we've let these animals out of the cage and people are actually going out into the world, that the demands on digital is even changing even more. Everyone's kind of zoomed out. Everyone's kind of changing what they want. They're kind of zoomed out of wanting to see people talking heads like me. You know, they're kind of looking at different textures of how you can resonate content with customers. So like some of them are doing digital animations of presentations, kind of like digital commercials, instead of having someone like me present it. Can you imagine an animation of someone doing it? It just helps kind of pique their interest a little bit more, because the bandwidth and the time is getting more and more critical. So it's about being more disciplined with your content, being more realistic about the bandwidth that we're going to have with these communities, and then really understanding what are they going to digital for, and what are they going to go to digital for in the future? Because what they went for digital before was different when they couldn't escape anywhere and get out to events. And really at the end of the day, you guys are going to see that, and I'm sure you know, so I don't want to imply that you don't, is that we have to be very disciplined with the content on digital, because right now we're seeing, and we've audited events where the on-demand content is really, look at this significant drop. This is a horrible graph to see if you're doing on-demand content, is that, you know, after the event, we post all this stuff on VODs, but in reality, less than 5% of them are actually going back for the content. So it has to be real time, and you have to really connect with that community and be very disciplined about what you're saying and build bite-sized pieces after, because no one's going to go in and listen to a 30 or 50-minute VOD. So a lot of times what we're doing with customers is we're building out what we call trailers, so that these are the talking points after the conference, and then that leads into a webinar or something like that. So think about like what that breadcrumbing looks like when you're doing digital events. And then, you know, the sad news is that if you're dealing with exhibitors, the exhibitors aren't getting what they want out of these shows. They're not happy with like the organizers because the hierarchical sponsorship isn't working out. Less than 30% of those communities aren't even going to the partner pavilions or the partner areas because they're so busy consuming all this content in a short window of time. They're getting smaller visibility. So we really need to think about fresh ideas for how we're going to come up with ideas for our customers who are exhibitors at large shows like CS. Because if CS continues to be digital and like VMworld is digital and you're an exhibitor, then really what they're getting from those platforms isn't enough to pique their interest. And the good news is we have the opportunity right now as producers and designers to come to our customers and saying, here's a better idea of how you can participate at third-party shows and not be kind of lost in this bloody water. And I don't know, how do you guys typically run these? Do you want to interject, or do I go through the whole thing and then you guys comment? Or because I can't see anybody because I minimize the screen.
This is your presentation, so if you want people to interject, you can totally have that. If you want them to wait till the end, we can do that as well. You tell us.
I think if you guys have questions, feel free to ask along the way. If I'm giving you data that maybe you didn't expect, I guess I'd like to do a litmus test right now and ask you guys, is this kind of what you're seeing, or is there anything here that's not what you're seeing or that you would challenge, or comments around it?
And feel free to chat as well, guys, and I'll monitor it.
Yeah, I haven't personally seen it, but this is everything that you're sharing here is exactly what I've been hearing or reading, you know, the feedback that we're getting. So it's not necessarily, you're not shocking me right now.
Okay, good. All right. If no other questions, I'll continue. So I thought that this would be a great slide to kind of break down what attendees want out of virtual and what we're seeing that they want out of live. Because I think in person it's networking, right? And in virtual it's really content. So it's important when we start to build out these hybrid solutions that we don't try to build the same thing for both communities, because they're not going to act the same in those communities. And then looking at hybrid, the in-person activities, we have to keep in mind that the attractiveness and the value of the in-person experience has moved to these emotional benefits with the brand. So we should kind of lean into that in designing a purposeful experience when it comes to designing exhibits or environments for an in-person activation. And I think we all wanted to hear that the good news is that, you know, everyone does still feel that live events are irreplaceable. And it's a great place to connect with someone's brand. It's tipping the scales at like almost 90%, that they really do feel like it's even more important to have a a memorable event with your brand versus just kind of like the way that we did it before. So what I thought I'd do in the next two slides, and again, it's because some of you deal with like the exhibitors themselves going, and then some of you are dealing with dealing with the shows themselves. So why will they attend an in-person event, and why are they going to virtual events? The interesting thing here is that 2 years ago, engaging and exploring exhibitors was not #1 at live events. It actually was like 3 or 4. And really learning was #1. But now that we've been all virtual for almost 2 years, when we poll the community, it's really important to understand that now they really want unscripted experiences, like spontaneous pop-ups. They want think tanks. They want to network. They really want to talk about rolling up their sleeves and doing hands-on labs. And in the virtual events, it's consuming that education, the sessions, the certifications, and all those things. And so again, you can really see how these two environments are completely different. And then when you look at the exhibitors, they're going there to really talk about, to meet with potential clients, and they're also doing the same for virtual. So both of them are still, they're looking to get the sales in the sales pipeline. So what we have to do is give them those opportunities and design them around those live or digital experiences. So that's about it with the data that helps to kind of build the foundation. So what is hybrid, and a lot of us are already into hybrid, but there's no real mystery. There seems to be a lot of mystery and fatigue around hybrid, but I think that we could demystify it ourselves and even with our customers because they seem like it's so different. But prior to COVID, a lot of our customers were using a multi-channel strategy. So in other words, exhibits and events stood outside of a group, but then everything else, social, marketing, campaigns, were held under an omni-channel strategy. So they were all interconnected. And because we went into COVID, it forced the event marketers to kind of go into this omni-channel strategy. And I don't think it's a bad thing that we're actually now blending the live events with the digital events, because this customer was kind of getting a choppy experience between live events and what they would get after a live event. So in reality, it's really not a bad thing that happened for us, but I don't think we were delinquent in coming up with it. I think that the light switch went off, the community changed, and now the community is embracing digital more than they ever did before. But I think we've all tried virtual events in the past and they weren't as successful as they are now. And so I don't think we can just look back and say like, oh, we missed something, because we really didn't. So when we think about the sophistication of the end user and all the customers that we have, the hybrid event's really gonna offer the best of both worlds, right? I mean, we're gonna basically take that in-person event experience to a highly targeted audience, and then we're gonna use the digital or the virtual to build a broader community. So we're kind of going from the sales pipeline up all the way down. And hybrid isn't new. When you think about it, awards, sports events, launching events, they all have this one-to-one, one-to-few, and one-to-many. So like if I was a sporting fan, I could watch it from my house, and that's a one-to-one. And the experience there was designed for what I wanted at home. And then if I wanted to get with a group, I could go to a one-to-few experience and go to a bar. And then the bars were designed to get kind of group collaboration and group communities together. And then if you went all digital, then you went to TV, to the stadium, and the stadium would have it. So you had the actual live and you had the actual digital. They were always hybrid. And so our community has been consuming this way for decades. It's not something new. It's just something different for us. But we can learn a lot by applying those tools to, if I'm doing a live event, what does that community want? When I do a digital event, what does that community want? And when I do a, maybe a satellite events, what do those events look like? So again, we can replicate that model for us, because essentially it's a hybrid event allows us to grow that attendee pipeline while creating a low effort, low commitment way for people to get to know and develop a relationship with those brands. So it's not just duplicating the experience for both in person and live, in person and digital. It's really looking at it through the lens of each. So if it's not one size fits all, what are we looking to accomplish? And really, I just thought breaking this down into like six determining pillars, right? When we're going through is, there's a lot of things to consider when we're going to the hybrid event. And so if we kind of started to ask our customers, what's the purpose of the event? What value will it offer, whether it's digital or live? What do they really want in terms of the programming and the formatting? Are they just curious learners or are they decision makers? And then you have to go and consider the sponsors and the exhibitors and what options and experience will meet their needs. And of course, we have to consider if it's a safe environment, where are we going? Is it going to be easy to get to? What's the security protocol look like? And then it's going to take double the amount of work. That's what we're finding with hybrid, is that you can't have the same team work on both. It's too tough, especially if you're launching your digital and live events at the same time. So what bells and whistles do we have that we could maybe cut out? Because I think when it comes to teams and resources, it's about, we call it the stinky fish exercise. We put it up and we say, like, what are we doing now that's really not giving us that return? And then we take and call that the stinky fish, and we remove that from the program, and then we reinvest those funds to do something else. And so really asking ourselves and asking the customers, what can we change now that we don't have to do, that could help fund the extra resources that you need? And then where does the organization fall with risk and mitigation? Every show that we've done right now, there has been a COVID outbreak after that show. And shouldn't say outbreak, but there's been an instance. So is the companies prepared for that kind of exposure? Because we're figuring out, like, for every 100 people, that you're kind of getting someone who will contract COVID while they're at the show. Not necessarily from the show, but it's while they're at the show. So these are kind of just 6 things that we think about to help drive the conversation with the customer. And again, you might have your own, but it's something that, if it helps you, then that's wonderful. And then we go through, like, what are the 8 best practices? And again, all of us on this call probably reacted to COVID differently. And there was a great study done by Deloitte that basically profiled all of us humans and said, like, there were 5 distinct ways that every person reacted to COVID. So to basically say, oh, we're going to do a live event, or we're going to do a hybrid event, and it's going to be this way for everybody, is probably not the best way to go about it. Because what a customer should do is survey their audience and say, how are you feeling about attending an in-live event? How are you feeling about hybrid? What do you want to achieve out of those? And then use that data to inform the design and the experience for those events, versus just assuming one size fits all. I have a client in healthcare, or I have a customer in finance, but their customers are completely different. And I want to understand, how are their customers going to react, and what's their scale of concern when it comes to thinking about a live event. And I've had some customers who are having 1,300, 1,400, 1,500 people, and another customer that can only get 10 at a time because their community is saying, we don't feel comfortable outside of a dozen. So these are just kind of like 8 little areas. What are the current goals? Determining, if this will help the right experience, building out that content strategy. And then again, understanding online, an intentional crossover. What do we want to have both events doing? What do we want to have some of the live event doing versus the hybrid or the digital? So basically, rather than one physical location, there are 2 different ways to look at variations of the hybrid. Is that we've seen where these are multiple sites that are tied together, thinking like East Coast, West Coast. And then we've got asynchronous events, so that people are throwing their live event and then throwing their virtual event after. And I don't know is anyone seeing that? Anyone seeing a pattern for their customers?
I personally haven't. Thank
Kim, are you seeing any pattern with your customers relative to having their live and digital at the same time or after?
Not really. We're dealing with more, it seems, I don't know, maybe I've just attracted a little more chaotic projects where we're out, we're not sure if we're going. So we're kind of more at that base level of planning than anything really truly strategic right now.
Yeah. And I think like for us, we had the same problem. And I think like what we stopped doing is we stopped kind of going into the build and started asking them like these 6 pillars, like on the front end, because then we grade them like, oh, are their event purpose, is it defined enough? No, then it's a score of a 2, and you can kind of build scorecards around their preparedness to go live and or their preparedness to go digital, right? Okay, let's see. Let me move forward.
So Lisa, after you scored them, then I mean, what did you do? I mean, so let's say there just wasn't enough strategy, direction, value, or whatever. Would you then just guide them and say, don't do it, or?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, because we found that before when we didn't do that, we were wasting so much money and resources on our teams, which I'm sure you guys all experience the same thing, right? We're all experiencing, skeletal teams to do all the work that is still there for us without, all that revenue. And what we couldn't keep up with this pace of tire kicking, right? And so what we would say is we would curate a discovery meeting and we'd go through all these pillars and we'd say, okay, is the company prepared? Do you have an objective? How are we doing? We'd go through those 6 pillars, and then we had an internal scoring system at Freeman, and then we would say, you know what, based on what we're seeing, we could save you the money, and we could just tell you that until you get this mapped out and this mapped out, it's really not a good time to start thinking about it. And they went away. They would go away, and I have a client right now that's coming back in February because they just weren't ready. And so, they also are trying to listen to their management, but when they go back to management and say like, we're really not ready yet, then management seems to back off, and let them have the time to get their teams or their products ready to go to market. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
So I just thought like, it's a bit easier to articulate what we're talking about when it's attendees for in person, versus live. And so what we kind of created here is this little cheat sheet of a hybrid attendee journey, which is so easy to replicate for anybody who's working with a client. Is we kind of map out, that runway pre-show, which is right here on the left. This is all pre, like, what are we going to do pre-event to kind of get visibility and interest around the program? And then here is whatever this is going to be for your clients, right? For this specific example, it was inspire, engage, and educate. It might be connect and network, whatever that's going to be. And then you build out your activations of what they're going to be below it. And then you go, okay, this is the virtual experience, and this is the in-person experience. And then in here is what's going to be shared. And so you can identify and say, well, these are specific things that are going to be shared, but then these are specific things that will only happen in person. So this kind of helps you. And then this is your post-event, how are you going to amplify this beyond the multiple day or the singular day event? And what we found is this is a really easy tool to kind of start mapping out, do I even have enough content to stimulate a community for virtual and a community for in-person? Because if it kind of is all shared and there's nothing really down here in each of these quadrants to get that live event going, then you really should stick with virtual. If everything that you're going to do is virtual and everything is shared and there's not enough in the live area, then you're really not ready to start a live event strategy. This is just another way to kind of build this out with a client and very quickly get them to understand that there's not enough to separate that community. So you might as well just stay virtual.
Lisa, are you learning this with existing clients trying to get, back after the past 2 years, or is this primarily with new clientele or potential new clientele?
Yeah, I'm all net new for Freeman. So I don't keep counts. I go after new. So for me, I'm using this to build the confidence and I'm trying to demonstrate to customers like the methodology's there, and so they can feel comfortable picking me and Freeman, right? To come to do their event with them. And so I'm trying to show them like this is the blueprint of success and like this is how we could build it. But I'm also seeing Freeman salespeople using this now within their internal customers to kind of navigate through that conversation. So the pillars and the principles, the design principles, and this slide, the attendee journey, I've now see all the salespeople in Freeman using it for their existing accounts.
Yeah, I could see that. Very helpful.
And you guys can build out your own kind of visual, but Excel's and narrative kind of clients don't get it. So just putting it visually for them, whether you do a bubble diagram, and maybe some of you have done this in a different way, but I think getting it into that infographic look helps them kind of break it down a lot easier. Okay. And then I just thought that there were examples where we've seen MPI, and I could only pull Freeman ones. I don't know of any other ones that all you guys are doing, but we have done MPI, and we did have some wonderful engagements. We did a hybrid event with them. So we had, live presentations at MPI, but we also had like the man on the streets, spontaneous Q&As that were on the virtual platform. And, there were a lot of great digital experiences. We ran concurrent sessions, and the on-demand content provided education for those who were remote. So I think like there are ways to do it and have fun with it and not worry that you are forgetting about that virtual community. But it does, we actually had our own virtual producers at the live event because we didn't want to struggle with all the people who were producing the event and then having the same team try to do the digital. So again, this is where we had digital folks at the live event curating the content for the virtual attendees. And then again at Hinman, we did something similar. Again, we had a couple thousand in person, 5,000 in virtual. A lot of them were first-time attendees. And again, just looking at different ways to connect with the exhibitors, building environments so that people could connect with them online, and then having time slots for those folks in. So there's little cheating ways to kind of connect both the digital and virtual. But these are just examples I wanted to share with you guys. A big thing for us though is when we're looking at live is there's two competing sentiments for people that are going in, right? It's like they want to go, they have this pent-up demand to go out there, but then they're also scared to go to events. And we've seen this now. I'm probably on my 12th event now, but we're seeing this across every vertical. So as event people, we need to maximize the feelings and opportunities around the first, obviously this, and then minimize the concerns for the second by creating the value and building safety measures. And so what we've started to do is look at this blending of business and leisure travel, right? I know a lot of us, there's a major trend now because we've all, even us, have learned to work remote, and we're working remote and having fun. Like I was just in Hawaii working. I've been to Yosemite and worked. I've been to Yellowstone. So like what we're seeing is if you're going to do a live event, really capitalize on this idea that they can work, they can still participate in an event and have it be fun as if they were working from home. So a lot of the things that we're suggesting is look at non-traditional venues, getting a hold of venues that like not going to tier 1 cities, going to the bleisure concept, going to like business leisure and finding fun places that maybe people want to go to, hiring local musicians, food trucks, things like that, building out break times because we just had an event and no one wanted to do the whole event the way that we used to do it, right? So it's not just, it's healthier lifestyles at the events. It's the mental health breaks. Some of these could be sponsored, so if we need to, but the experiences matter more now than ever when we go back to the live events. You can't just do what we did before. The brand new audiences that they're getting in virtual when they go to the live event, they basically, we need to extend that campaign beyond their existing experience. So we have all these new attendees, but it doesn't mean that we have to have them come to the event. So really, we have to focus on who do we want to have come to the event and really profile that so that we have the right people coming. And to pay proper respect to where we've been and not to disrespect the past. There's a lot of things that are broken, that have been broken in events that we think it's a great time to change. Those long lines at Reg, the printed directories, the direct mails, all these are things that we can now change and start to do differently. Because like we said, what we're seeing with live events right now is that it's not about the physical events. It's about, we don't want to bore them with all the crap that we used to. They don't care about the number of sessions. They don't care about the demographics of the audience. They don't care about the exhibitor space. What they care is about connecting with that emotional brand. And so never has there been a better time for us to retool the essence of brands to show more kindness and more caring and more authenticity with those brands. So what we're trying to do with them is just trying not to be irrelevant and trying to be authentic and bringing that professionalism to it, but really keeping in mind that whether it's from Nike, Patagonia, or Chick-fil-A, whoever it is, if you look at what everyone's doing right now, they're taking their brands and connecting them on an emotional level. And so we just kind of have to break down what we used to do about, like, here's Reg, here's the demo, here's the conference room, here's this, and just creating more of kind of experiences that people can connect with each other and just get out of their way, and making sure that we do something that increases the value of their participation and that they'll want to go to that event. Right now we're doing Falcon, which we have about 20,000 registered, but we're doing happy hours, very simple happy hours in 16 different places around the world. And they're just 2-hour events, but it's a way for people to experience the virtual event, but then get together in a community tribal way and connect at a happy hour after the show. And again, it's nothing complicated. It's just kind of giving a forum, an intentional forum for people to connect. We didn't have any content there or anything. It's just really for them just to mingle. So, the key takeaways for me to give to you guys is, only connect the audience when there's a shared interest in doing so. Create that fear of missing out for both your digital and your live events. And in person, make it exclusive for in person, and in virtual, make it inclusive for virtual. It's not the same size for both. It's not the same experience for both. And then in closing, just remember that there's 3 pillars. Live equals attendee enthusiasm and experience. Hybrid equals 2 different journeys, not replicating one to the other. And 3, hybrid is a sales funnel nirvana, right? Where we can get a virtual sales growth and we can get a live sales growth. So make them work together, and then you kind of have a winning model. And that was it. That's all I got for you guys.
Yay, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Okay, so Lisa, you bring up the word fun. I said, have you had any fun yet at a conference? Personally?
I have had fun at a conference. I've also been terribly exhausted at them because like you, so many customers, we had that Delta variant hit right when we were doing an RSA conference in Orlando. And, the thing is, you plan for one thing, but then like the Delta variant came in, which we didn't expect. And it came in right in August, and our event was in September. And I think we're just going to have to be designing around, there's going to be more, and we can't be sitting on like, oh, it's COVID, it's COVID, it's COVID. We got to move beyond COVID and start just designing for the new world that we have to live in. But yeah, I've even had fun with virtual now, which I didn't think I would.
That's a miracle.
Because I mean, I think we're all live event producers, right? We like live events. We love to connect with people, and digital has never really given us all that. You know, it's just kind of a 2D experience. So I know we all want to get back to live. And I think doing that is going to be even funner because it's almost like planning C-suite events, you know, instead of, it's not a lot for everybody, but it's so much fun planning these particular programs for like 100 people. I do think that there's some fun in that.
Tell us, what are your opinions on CES, given that Freeman's still the contractor for that one, right?
Yeah, yeah, unless you know something I don't know.
I don't know anything. But I'm just curious, you know, because last year was such a high visible experience on the virtual that, you know, to be honest, was a bit of a bust.
Yeah.
So now that it's coming back to live, I mean, what are they doing differently that you know of that you think is going to embrace the virtual better than it did last time?
I haven't even looked at CS, to be honest with you. I don't know. I know that we did. I could follow up with you guys. I have no idea what they're doing. I know they're doing both. They're doing virtual and live, though. They're doing both. And I know that we have Mobile World Congress starting like next week, I think it is. So, you know, I'm just going to keep my eyes on what those third-party events are really struggling a little bit more than corporate, to be honest. Right. Corporate companies that are doing their own events, I think, adjusted much faster than the third-party events, like the RSNAs of the world and all those third-party events.
That are still in limbo.
Right. And I'm seeing sort of like this clumping of shows together. So DAC and Semicon and whatever show, you know, it's like a 3-for-1 now, and they're just really just trying to fill space because
they are.
Those exhibits, they're just going to flounder in a little ballroom somewhere if they don't do that.
But is it like the right audiences, you know, when they do that, are they still pulling the right audiences for the exhibitors?
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is that I just came back from CinemaCon, which was in Vegas, and they usually had like 15,000 people. They had like 6,000. But the difference is that the companies that are coming are the companies that are serious about buying, you know, these huge barcodes for their theaters, right? So in reality, the tire kickers are gone, but now the qualified buyers are there. And so the customer that I had there actually met with more customers than they did when the show was bigger. And so I think like we have to really kind of, you know, bow our head to that and saying like, well, it's really not quantity, it's quality. Mm-hmm. And so now what they did at CinemaCon is they actually, instead of having the trade show floor, they actually sold all the big brands. CinemaCon was the, Cineonic was the customer. We actually took an entire ballroom and we converted it into a mini theater. So I think like, again, if we can really look at helping our customers get off the show floor, and that was a strategy for CinemaCon, saying we don't want to be on a show floor where it's going to be empty. Let's get near the sessions where everyone's going to be and give us a big ballroom. The Roman ballroom is quite large at Caesars, and we took the whole ballroom and we had hundreds of people lined up to come in. So I think going to them and asking them that, they said like, sure, let's do it. And I think we just have to be more curious about the opportunities we have for our exhibitors instead of just putting them on an exhibitor floor. And I think that also makes you look great for your customer, is that you say, you know, why don't we try this? And then most of the third parties are letting you do it because they're desperate to get great ideas. You know, they're not thinking like we do. So they would love those ideas, and then they keep marketing them to other people.
I have one question for you. First of all, thank you. This is really an incredible presentation and great to see the data. And thanks to Freeman for doing such an amazing survey. I'm just curious on the demographic. So I recently heard a stat, and I might be butchering this, that 75% of the event industry is over 50 or over 55. And I mean, I'm pretty close, getting closer and closer to that. So I have to consider myself a little bit of one of those. But I mean, you know, you see articles all the time that our real buying demographic are in their 20s and 30s, and they're the ones that are really influencing the future. So I'm just curious about the demographic of the study, and is it representative of that cohort, I guess?
Yeah, it's really awesome that you brought that up, Anna, because we had a huge meeting about a year ago, and you know, Freeman's always looking, you know, they've been around forever. And so, because I come from the agency side, so, you know, coming into Freeman, I was like, wow, just all this depth and breadth of knowledge that they have being on the general contracting side. And it's really interesting, but they already finished the research around the demographics. And yes, the boomers are out. And that's why they're saying that websites are going to change in the next 10 years. We're going to see a huge demographic change in the way that we market. Our customers have to market. And a lot of those people are like, the TikTok's a great example of like, look how mainstream TikTok is with branding and marketing right now. If you're not on TikTok as a consumer brand and getting somebody to influence your brand consideration, you're missing the mark. And like a lot of our event marketers that we work with aren't even capable of processing how to position your product in a minute. And that's where we're getting down to minutes, and to like the attention span of people right now is 6 seconds. So that's what I'm saying. We have to change the way that we market, and the demographics are telling us that. So as far as the study goes, you guys can all subscribe. It's not filtered to just corporate brands. I think it's like $300 for the subscription, and you can get it by the general consensus, or you can get it against a specific vertical. And you can just go on freeman.com and subscribe to it. And then what they do is that data scientist and the strategist who are pulling that data, they do a readout like every quarter to all the subscribers. They take that big deck that they do, which is like 100 pages, and they present the highlights of it. So let's say you were in there and you're saying, could you highlight the demographics about the personas and the interests of people under 30? They can do that. They can do it by political view. They can do it by demographic. They can do it by age, by gender, by education level. It's quite robust.
Cool, thanks.
You're welcome. Well, I hope it was helpful, you guys.
Lisa, the biggest question I have is where to next for your bleisure setting?
For my, what do you mean?
Where are you going to work from home next?
Oh, I was going to go to Utah, but Bryce Canyon, but we just canceled it. So I'm going to the Gilroy. We're going to camp at Gilroy. Oh, I don't know if Steve's still on the call with Shannon Malliott from GPJ. We're all going to Gilroy. We're going to camp there for the weekend because there's like an artist songwriter festival that's going on. So we're just doing a local bleisure Airstream extravaganza.
Is it this weekend?
No, it's at the end of October.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
How about who's traveling next? Who is any show of hands? Who's traveling? Are you guys on the road? Working?
Well, if South San Francisco counts, you know, I'm like 40 minutes down the road, but it requires a hotel stay. So yeah.
Oh, good, good. So you guys are doing shows and getting out there.
Yes, I am grateful. I'm actually home for 3 weeks, and this is the longest span I've been home in months. So I'm so grateful for that. But yes, lots of traveling.
That is wonderful. Yeah, I've been married 36 years, and I told my husband, we've never spent this much time together ever in our entire relationship. I'm glad we made it, knock on wood. But it was really funny. We weren't sure how we do. I don't know you. I don't know you. How am I going to hang out with you? All right.
I love it.
All right. I mean, I think that is it. Thank you so much for today. And I've recorded this so we can share it with everybody. And yeah, the only other things I have is a couple of other events that we have coming up. And I know most people have jumped off the call right now, but November 1st, we are doing an EDPA chapter happy hour at Exhibitor Live. So if anybody's attending Exhibitor, let us know and we'll have an e-blast go out shortly on that. And then we also have a Zoom call scheduled for December 7th with a magician named Gary Farrar. So it should be really fun and entertaining for us, not just super educational, but also something maybe you can incorporate into your experiential events, things like that. Start thinking outside of the box. And then also SoCal is looking at doing another in-person happy hour at the end of December. So those are just a few of our events that are coming up.
Are we still doing the 21st of this month?
So we haven't officially canceled it, but
Okay.
so we do quote unquote have a Bay Area happy hour, but I don't know if that's going to go through on October 21st. If anybody is interested in attending, let us know for sure. And we can make that happen. But yeah,
Cool.
that is all.
Well, this has been great. Lisa, thank you so much. I gained a great deal of information. It was very helpful. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you guys liked it. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks, Lisa.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.